Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another late night episode here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Maybe you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is an historian making their second appearance back on the show. Now, this guest is always a blast. She is absolutely incredible. And in this episode, viewers and listeners, we're actually going to be doing a focus interview specializing in the Paleolithic age of ancient India. And I cannot think of a better guest to interview for this topic than my good friend and fellow historian, Divya Chowdhary. So let's give a huge round of applause to her for making her second appearance back on the show. Divya, welcome back to The Wandering Scribe.
Hi, thank you so much, Gabriel, for welcoming me. Namaste to everyone.
Nice, Divya. I'm so excited to have you here back.
That's usually the way we greet. Namaste.
Namaste. Nice.
Amazing. You got the pronunciation right.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Divya, again, I'm so excited to have you back on the show. It's been far too long. Before we dive into this follow-up historian's interview, would you like to share with the viewers and listeners what you've been up to since the last time you were on the show?
Okay. So the last time I was here was in May. And since then, I have been, first of all, I took up independent research projects. I was doing research paper presentations in Bhopal, then in Delhi. So this 6-month period, I just focused on building myself more as a researcher and as a presenter. And other than that, there are PhD entrance programs in India. So because I would like to pursue my doctorate, I was preparing for those entrance exams as well.
Nice. Well, that is great news to hear, Divya. That is great news to hear. And I wish you all the best on those endeavors.
Actually, it is while I was developing these 4 research projects and presenting them in various seminars, and during my entrance is when I came to know that we have a lot of potential in the Stone Age of India, Paleolithic age, and it's hardly very talked about. People don't care. I mean, I know that when I was presenting one of those papers, it was a student who asked me a question and said, what will you get by studying stones? I still don't understand. These are just still stones. And I did not have an answer right then. I just said that, then I explained, which we will probably talk upcoming.
Yes, nice. And actually, thank you for bringing that up, because that actually perfectly segues into sort of like a starter question for this follow-up interview, Divya, which is, what sort of sparked this interest into diving into India's Paleolithic past? What was the aha moment that really struck you as a researcher and an historian?
The aha moment was when I read a story. I was trying to understand the sites in India and how old they go. One of the stories that I came across while reading this was in Bhopal. It was Dr. V.S. Vakankar who was traveling on a train from Itarsi to Bhopal, and he saw some caves in the forest. He was on the train, he saw those caves, and he said he just immediately pulled the emergency button and got the train stopped. And then he went and he found the rock art treasure of India. It's called Bhimbetka. Have you heard?
I've heard a little bit of it, but not too much.
Not too much, yes. Bhimbetka, he went and he found these hunting scenes, animals, all of them being painted on those rocks. Now, this is not your regular paintings that we see on a portrait or on the walls. No, it is just on the rocks, very crude paintings. But Dr. V.S. Vakankar this is something new. We need to date it. And when it was dated, the dates went back to Upper Paleolithic age, which is somewhere around 10,000 to 20,000 years ago. And that's how the discovery of that, when I heard the story, and that is when I realized we are very, very old. We are thousands of years old. And after that, I kept reading. It's most of these aha moments were on reading and while doing the research for my presentations.
Right.
And another one was when I saw a photograph of a very plain looking stone tool. It was just stone. I couldn't understand what's the use. But when I came to know that it was used for chopping and how it was made, and then the core and flakes, I came to realize that the people we think were, in Hindi, we'll call it Adi Manav, old man, first
Mm.
man. But the way, but then they knew all of these stone tool technologies, which means that they had a tradition, they had a past, they were conveying it on to generations and generations without having probably a developed language as we do now. So
Right.
when this realization hit me that the Stone Age people themselves, it's considered to be the longest age of the history of the world. So is in India. But when I realized that these people had a tradition, they were passing it down. Why do we think we are civilized? They might have been civilized in their own heads, in their own minds. So that is when I realized you need to study more on this, because we are very old and everything that we do now has its origin in the Stone Age.
Yes, absolutely. Very, very true, Divya. And it is really fascinating because you did bring up something just now when you just shared that incredible story, which is the dating and sometimes redating
Hmm.
of artifacts and sometimes paintings of the Paleolithic age. And that has always sparked some debate because every country that has found some form of cave art, whether it's in France or Spain, in Europe, like take
Yes.
credit as this is like the oldest place of human artwork in the world. But for those that remember the film, finding, I'm probably going to butcher the name, Alta Maria with Antonio Banderas, his discovery of the Alta Maria caves shook the scientific world because it broke the established norm that the caves in France were the oldest, when in truth, at the time, the caves in Alta Maria are older. And now from this discovery, Dia, that could possibly even shake the balance even more. So I'm very, very intrigued to learn from you what you've uncovered along the way. So jumping headfirst into this, my first question to you is, after learning about this story and the amazing, the word I'm thinking of is possibilities it could do for the historical and scientific communities, what is ultimately your need and desire, as well as your promise, when researching the history of India's Stone Age past and presenting it to the next generation?
Right. I think when when we talk about historical ages or medieval ages, we have a lot of um, worded stories to tell people.
Mm-hmm.
We have exactly the visualizations that could have happened, right? But when it
Right.
comes to but when it comes to the origin of mankind, we have no visualizations. We have absolutely nothing. We
No.
just we just rely on those handmade stone tools that we find. It's pure
Mm-hmm.
archaeology and no interaction of any sort. I
Nope.
think when I'm researching, when I'm presenting, my only aim is for the listeners to, there are two aims. One, understand how old your civilization is, because historicity and historical consciousness derives identity of a
Right.
civilization. So
Mm.
one is to understand how old you are as a civilization and whole of mankind. Secondly, to feel inspired. This particular time period does not tell you great stories at all, but to know, but to understand that how Homo sapiens have
Hmm.
evolved from Erectus, Ergaster, then Heidelbergensis, Neanderthals, and then there are uh, they are they are interbreeding and all of those things. Understand where you came from. It's just the point that I want to highlight. Understand your origins.
Hmm.
That's all what's driving.
Absolutely, very, very true. Because if you do look at the history of human evolution, we start looking at, the early hominids, Australopithecus,
Yes.
uh, afarensis, and then Australopithecus africanus. And we know that they migrated out of the continent of Africa and spread throughout. And we know that they went into the Americas over the land bridge. We know that there's evidence of them in Asia, in the South Pacific. And you would think that, okay, it makes sense that there would be these pocket communities, these civilizations, and yet we don't get research on them, or rather, research is done, but it's not popular or part of a trend that may be happening in society, which is, in my opinion, such a shame because there's so
Mm.
much it could do.
I'll tell you, I'll add one more thing here. So how do we recreate, how do we reconstruct our Stone Age past? What do paleontologists and archaeologists find? They find a cranium or a rib cage or two pieces of bone leg bone they'll find. And
Hmm.
on the basis of that, they're reconstructing the entire species. That also shows that also shows how tedious paleontology and then archaeology, anthropology are as subjects, and quite underrated.
Hmm.
Because if you compare them with the IT and science and tech, nobody gives a damn. But then
No.
that is the amount of effort that goes in. We just find pieces, and we create entire species because we study and research that way. So archaeology and anthropology are great subjects in that sense because we put in a lot of effort from one piece of fossil that we find.
Yes. I couldn't agree more, Divya. I couldn't agree more. And this leads to my next question, which is, as a researcher and as a teacher, as you mentioned earlier, when you were telling your students about this, there was no engagement. Ultimately, as you continue to uncover India's Stone Age path, what do you want your students and the general public to take away from this research?
This is actually a difficult question that you've asked me because even I don't have a clear answer. Why?
Mm,
Because, like I said, we don't have clarity of human stories. So,
mm,
how do I tell my students and how do I tell my audience that what's important? There is only one point: know your origin. That's
yes.
it. There is, for me, there is nothing beyond this at this point. Maybe if I keep learning more, maybe if I keep digging more, I'll find something which will make it more inspirational for my students and audience. But as of now, I just want to tell people that our origins are complicated. There were so many species fighting, and don't have this idea that Homo sapiens were the greatest. No, we have fallen, we've come back, and then there were other species coexisting with us. So
Hmm.
I think whenever I'm doing this research, my point is always A, to know your origin better, and B, I don't think there is any point of being proud that you're Homo sapiens. This is just a matter of natural selection. That's it.
All right.
There are two
All
things
right.
that I do.
Nice.
But the highlight
Very, very
is
nice.
know your origin.
Yes, absolutely. Very, very true. And I also think when you look at like India itself as it is a hub of so many cultures that have existed from the classical
Yes.
age, medieval age, pre-modern age, so many different communities coming into it and building upon it. Many people who don't study or have studied a little bit about India's vast history, I have dabbled in a little bit, but it just blows my mind of the rich and vast beauty that India has. And you would think that, well, of course, like many other places around the world during the Stone Age, there was going to be artifacts. Well,
Mm.
the only things you ever cover on, as I mentioned, the classical age, the
Mm.
medieval age, the early medieval period, forgot to mention that, the pre-modern age, and of course, the one that probably people most know about is Britain's conquest of India during the late 18th century, early 19th century. So it is very, very fascinating to talk about this and really bring to light a past that has always been there, but now bring it to life, which actually goes into my first fan question, Divya. I'm actually going to look at to make sure I actually find the right one, which is ah, here it is. So this viewer asks, when you first heard the story and seeing the artifacts up close, how did you feel at that moment, actually seeing a physical relic from India's past that had been forgotten for several millennia?
When I first saw that artifact, it was a hand axe, a Shulian hand axe,
Hmm.
and I couldn't make out. I mean, they are saying that it's very important, but I couldn't really make out why is it important. So, if you are holding a potsherd or a pot or a necklace or a tiara, you'll understand the importance. But what will you do
Hmm.
when you're holding a stone?
Right.
Then it was explained to me, and I think I should have mentioned this in my aha moment question as well. When it was explained, so the Acheulean hand axe is made in a very certain way. It's
Yes.
the shape of your if it's the shape of your palm. And when I attended the bone knitting, flint knapping workshops, which teach archaeologists, aspiring archaeologists and historians how were these stone tools made. They showed you when you cut stone against stone. So how the pressure is, how there is a core and then there is a flake. And when I understood that process, I developed a view to look at these stone tools. Now I can identify
Mhm.
that this is a man-made and this is natural. So now when I hold those tools, I understand its importance, and I look at it and think, I mean, it's not alive and it's not even a pot. I can't use it right now, but it's very important because this is how we came to use our modern day tools. This is the origin.
Mhm.
That is how
Yeah.
I felt.
Nice. And just to go a little more in depth, viewers and listeners, like the importance of the hand axe. As he just said, flint knapping was the main method of crafting these hand axes. And we've seen so many videos and cartoons that just shows two Neanderthals just hitting away at stones and automatically tools are made. But it's a lot more complex than that. I mean, you have to really put this into perspective, viewers and listeners. This is at a time when early humans, and if you look at the six major species of humans that existed on planet Earth, Neanderthals and
Yeah,
Homo sapiens among them, they are not the dominant ones. They are literally at the bottom of the
bottom
food
of
chain.
it. Yes.
Yeah. And we did not have fur. We had no natural weapons, unlike the megafauna that existed during the Stone Age. But we did have one thing that no other creature has had, which is the ability to create tools. And the first tool was, of course, the hand axe, which is a process through flint knapping. And from videos that I have seen and dabbled in just viewing it, almost like yourself, Divya, at workshops, it's a very meticulous science process because you're using certain stones to cut just enough of the material, but not too much to break it. And then other particular objects to get a defined edge. That's another thing too, viewers and listeners, getting a sharp edge on a piece of stone or obsidian. The science behind it is just so fascinating. And again, when you see it for what is at first like it's a rock, but when you see it and you realize that, oh, this is the first tool, this is the first object that humans turned into a weapon to establish themselves as the dominant species in the world. So it is incredibly fascinating. And I'm very curious, Divya, when that article broke, like, was it a big thing in India when the news broke? Like, was it like national news or was it kind of centralized?
Actually, I do not remember exactly this thing, that whether it was. Okay, yes, you're talking about V.S. Vakankar. I'm so sorry. It was a big news. It was as big a news as when John Marshall announced the civilization of Indus in
Mm-hmm.
1924. So you see that V.S. Vakankar found the Bhimbetka caves, which date back to the Paleolithic age, in 1957. That is just 10 years after India's independence. And at
Right.
that time, we were looking for more sites, more points of our historical pasts, and because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of our land was with Pakistan, so we couldn't excavate in Harappa and Mohenjo-daro anymore. We were looking for Indus sites as well. We were looking for more historic sites within India, and V.S. Vakankar found something which dated us even back then, Indus Valley civilization.
Mm-hmm.
So it was big news because until then, it was understood that India does not have a stone age. We just started when the Ramayana and Mahabharata happened. That was the idea which the colonial historians gave us, and we just accepted. But
Right.
when
Until
the
now.
yes, until now, until the discovery of Bhimbetka caves, until the discovery of a hominid skull by H.D. Sankalia, until the discovery of Acheulean hand axe by you see in Delhi's JNU, we have found these lower Paleolithic hand axes. Now, I'll tell you something. It's not that uh, in colonial people in India were not finding Stone Age tools before. Robert Bruce Foote found an Acheulean axe in 1900s itself. But it wasn't given that much importance because then it would date India back. And that's against what
Colonial
colonial
mindset.
historians would
Yes.
want us to know. So it existed on record, but not studied widely or allowed to be in the public domain.
Mm.
So it
So
is
in a
giving
way,
us back our identity. It's giving us how old we are. Like I said, point is always Paleolithic is equal to point of origin. Always.
mm,
So it was a big deal. It was V.S. Vakankar actually was awarded by the Indian government Padma Shri or Padma Vibhushan for his works. So it was that big a deal.
not amazing. Absolutely incredible. And almost like you were gonna like I was gonna say, but you took it right out of my mouth, which is these discoveries were reclaimed by India to give it back its ancestral path, not path past that had been denied and forgotten for so long. And it is a crime that it did happen, but I was reading something that was very powerful when it came down to almost like these huge events. I forgot the exact story, but the quote was very powerful, which was justice, while it may be delayed, is never denied. And it was in regard to a discovery that was found somewhere, I want to say either in Europe or Central Asia. And it was huge. I forgot the exact time period, but it was national news at the time. And it brought back such power to that nation, to that country.
Right.
And I'm glad that that's now the same thing for India. And for you to research it and to uncover more, Divya. This actually leads into another fan question. And one of my viewers asked, what do you hope this discovery will do in regards to fostering new discussions and possibly new uh, explorations into India's past in the Stone Age?
New explorations. Even I want a very grand answer that you can find this, you can do that. Something which
Hmm.
gets to us, like I said, by historic, by classical ages, by medieval ages. But again, here, the more we keep finding, the more evidence we'll collect, the more specimens we'll have to understand. So, it's you see these research centers that we have in India. For instance, one is Sharma Institute of Research, who found Atiram Pakkam, a site which gave us more Acheulean hand access. It's giving us. Then there is a site called Jwalapuram in Andhra Pradesh, which by studying we understood that okay, uh, there is Middle Paleolithic age. Then there is that layer of Toba volcanic ash, and then again we have the Middle Paleolithic age tools. That means that hominids, they survived there. The Toba eruption, 74,000 years ago, they survived and they continued. I think new ways would be just for the time being, keep studying, keep analyzing these specimens for more insights on how we were back then. As of
Yes.
you see, it's difficult to frame any narrative for the Stone Age. We cannot visualize at all. It's really difficult. So
Yes.
collect specimens, analyze. That's what I also do in my researches. Try to point out these species differences. How did we survive? Question is, how did we survive? And
Hmm.
answer lies in our Stone Ages.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's more of an analysis, analyze to understand for our own selves. Not
Hmm.
every part of history needs to be give us some heroic story. No, because most of the time people are just living their lives and just fighting for food. That
Hmm.
boring part of history and is actually our whole source of origin. So boring is equal to
Yes.
good. So just collect specimens, analyze more, and know more about our past ages in the Paleolithic time.
Very true. Very, very true, Divya. And now this is a more personal question, which is kind of a little bit almost what I've asked you before in your first interview, but I'm going to change it up a little bit. So this is a very big thing, and uncovering the research of it, gathering sources that were done by the past. As you mentioned, there was studies done and exhibitions done in the 1920s, and of course in the 1950s after India uh, got its independence back from the British. So, with that said, and the research that will be done now after this huge discovery, I imagine there may be a little bit of intimidation in the sense that this is a lot of new stuff. This is a lot of incredible things, and it may be daunting at some times for any researcher to be in a state of limbo of, am I actually going to help contribute to it? Am I going to hold it back? It's a little bit of an intimidation thing when something new is always discovered. So for you, Divya, as a researcher and as a fellow historian, what has kept you centered and grounded in the wake of dealing with what I like to call imposter syndrome?
Actually, Gabriel, I did not really understand this question.
Okay, sorry. It
Sorry.
was a very, very, very loaded one. So
Yes.
I'll re-say it
Because
again.
I got the word imposter syndrome, and then I'm like, did I do something wrong?
Okay, no problem,
Could,
Divya.
could you explain
It was
again?
a very loaded. So I'll rephrase it a little bit.
Yeah.
So as an historian and as a researcher,
Mhm.
we're always looking at new things and wanting
Right.
to research and provide our own insight. But when we gather sources and try to
Mhm.
present our studies, we may get overwhelmed with the amount of research that we've taken upon ourselves.
Always.
And we may have moments of self doubt and believe that we are imposters, that we are not in the right field, that we don't know what we're talking about, even though you and I are both, classically trained. We've gone to university,
Mhm.
we've done the work, we know what to do, but we have those moments where we have our self-doubt. So ultimately, Divya, in those moments of self-doubt or imposter syndrome, what has disciplined you to stay true to yourself as the researcher and as the historian?
Too many. I have too many things to say on this. Let me tell you. Ah, too many. Um, what has made me true to my research? I think you see,
Mhm,
it's the same thing which drives a scientist, or the same thing which drives an engineer: curiosity, the
mhm.
urge to know the right answer. Why am I the way I am? So you need to dig into your past, why you are the way
Right.
you are. So it is my hunt for finding the right answer. And when I say right, it is also subjective. Why? Because
Mhm.
most of the times we may just have logical assumptions. This may have happened. These are the facts. These are the facts. So when you combine them, this is the most plausible thing that could have happened. This is how it works.
Right.
So I just my in one word I will just say it is curiosity to find answers and to get the answers right. Not that there is somebody just told me some legend, some myth, and I'll believe it. It's so
Mhm.
that I use my own understanding of who I am. And that is why digging into researching, digging into the past helps me. And Gabriel, could you repeat that you said that we are all qualified people, and when we do research, we get overwhelmed, right? So on that,
Yes.
when I was doing my researches for the Stone Age, I found all of it to be so abstract. You cannot visualize. There is nothing you can see. You can only see the stone tools. So it did get overwhelming a lot of times, and I had to pause. Just don't look at it for 2 3 days straight. And
Mhm.
when you have that drive into you, after a pause, when you look at your research again, you'll be able to get a breakthrough. This is how the process works. So I just stopped looking at it because it was
Right.
difficult to visualize, putting pressure on my head.
Absolutely. And kind of going forward, something what I like to call now the business side of being a historian and researcher. There is one question that I really would like to hear your thoughts on, Divya, and that is, of course, generative AI in regards to
Hmm.
academia and research papers. And I've talked with a lot of colleagues on this. Now, I'll be the first to say it, and I'm sure you definitely agree, Divya, that AI as a software is going to be everywhere. No matter how many times we try to move away from it or try to get rid of it, it's embedded in everyday appliances. So we can't get rid of it. However, the thing that a lot of people have, whether you are a creative person like an artist or an author, or an academic like a professor, teacher, or researcher or historian, the big issue that a lot of people have is generative AI, where you have people using a program to, let's say, generate an essay or a research topic or
Right.
presentation on the medieval past of Italy. And it will automatically do that. And unfortunately, the information is probably going to be outdated. It's not going to be written correctly. And most importantly, it feels stale. It's mass produced. It doesn't have that creative spark. And
Great.
a lot of people will argue it's like it's an academic paper, it's not supposed to be creative. I argue that regardless if you're writing a book or writing a research paper, you need to write something that's going to be engaging and going to get the reader's attention, regardless of what medium you use. So for you, Divya, I would like to hear your thoughts on with the rise of generative AI and the uses that it has. Do you believe, from an academic standpoint, that we are teetering on this sort of dark age scale where we use generative AI too much, the human voice is going to be lost. And we should have this equilibrium balance of human first creation, whether that's fiction or creative and academic work, while also using AI as a tool as it should and not the end all be all.
If I talk about the section of people who talk that it's a dark age, I've always been against the concept of dark age. There is no dark age.
Right.
Because like this, social media is dark age, internet is dark age. That's too extreme. And then to also say ki nothing will happen, everything will be fine, also extreme. So the right way to approach is always equilibrium. And then we have to understand that we have to study first. It is us as humans. We have to study first. We have to develop our own insights. And then generative AI is our assistant, is our executive assistant. We tell generative AI, we prompt AI to do something for us. But then that should not kill the quality of our words. So you can brainstorm with generative AI. You can say you can say that, what was that story for this particular fact? Then it will search for you. But then you have to write it on your own. People who think that I can just put my thoughts here and generative AI will write it for me and then submit those papers. Well, that is a cause of concern, because then that is no human quality. AI is not going to improve until humans improve it. So then again, that will be a case of mass production. The point is that as researchers, as students, as teachers, professors, historians, we have to think on our own first. And for that, we need to study. But AI can make reports for us. AI can tell us, extract some fact for us. But at the end, we have to write on our own. And that is the balance. AI is your assistant and you are the boss.
Yes. That's probably the best argument I've ever gotten, Divya, for the use of generative AI, that you can use it to brainstorm.
Yes.
Or tell, like, okay, find me articles by these people, and it will give you those prompts. And it's like, okay, thank you. Now I, as the researcher, have to research these and actually put in the work to get my sources. So that's a very good argument.
AI is your best friend in brainstorming if you don't have such kind of company as of now. And it also evolves you into thinking better. The flow of thought is amazing when you talk to AI for that one particular thread. Also, you see, okay, Gabriel, there was a point in my mind I forgot. There was one point regarding generative AI in my mind, which I use myself. Okay, got it. So when, for instance, I am a researcher, right? So I have to write papers and present. How do I use AI here? First of all, I'll start with, tell me for this particular subtopic, what should be the ideal abstract? How should it be framed? Then it will give you bullet points to think. Then you answer those questions in your own document, and that's how you'll be able to write. So AI will stop your writer's block. That's why it will help you brainstorm. But don't let AI kill your creativity, because if you just prompt that, write this abstract for me, that is where the problem is. But if you say, how can I write an abstract for this topic? This is the title in my mind. Tell me the pointers on which I should write the abstract, then keyword. Give me a framework. That is how you can use AI better for yourself. And that's how I do it.
Very well said, Divya. And I do the exact same thing as an author. Sometimes I have a story in my head and I need to think of, okay, I'm writing this research article. I need to know how I would frame it. Boom. And I have an outline to follow. Now I got to write on my own. And this kind of leads into the next question, which I love asking historians this. And it's when it comes to presenting our research, since you and I and many others, we are classically trained, we are told to write in a specific way for a particular audience. But if we are writing and or speaking to the general public, the jargon or the language has to be different because no one's going to pick up on the cues that we say. Only those that were in, university or in like an historical society or a community or organization, they're going to pick it up. And we find ourselves having to relearn how to talk to the general public. So for you, Divya, as a researcher and also as a teacher as well, how have you been able to balance the two? You want to highlight that you've done the research, you
Mm.
are knowledgeable, but you're able to articulate to a variety of people as opposed to speaking in a certain way or presenting in a certain way.
Again, I found I'm so sorry again. I found it. Can you ask me a question again?
Of course, of course. So, as a researcher and as an
Mm,
historian, you and I are
mm,
both trained to speak and write in a certain way. But when working with the public, that might not always work. Sometimes they'll have a general idea, and we have to, again, retrain ourselves how to write for the general audience. So ultimately, Divya, for you as a researcher, historian, and also as a teacher, how do you showcase the academic side, the university side of you through your research, but also through your writing to where it's easily readable and not bogged down by academic verbiage?
got it. This technique was taught to me by one of my professors in the Indian Institute of Heritage. The phrase is dumb it down. That's the phrase. That's the key that I use when I go to present first in certain for certain audiences and for certain students. How do I do it? So people, general public who are not aware of these technical terms that we use. What's a hand axe? What's a Schulian hand axe? Or what is a burin, a cleaver? These are all names of stone tools. How do I do it? Well, I just say people understand stone tools, the word. In Hindi,
Mhm.
we'll say Adi Manavo ke patthar wale tools. That's what we say in Hindi, which basically meant that the crude stone tools of the first humans. That's the thing. So,
Mhm.
how do I do it? That I show them the images first. And then I ask them, what did you understand by it? Then we'll have a whole discussion. And during that discussion, I'll point out, okay, so you are saying that this is not even man-made, but I'll tell you how it's man-made. So I go first for the explanation and then for the terminology. So
Mm.
it sits in their mind. Not that I am using a term and then I'm explaining the definitions. This way is not going to work because, like I said, Stone Age is difficult to visualize. So unless
Right.
and until I'm able to give them some kind of narrative, which is logical, they won't be able to understand these jargons. For them, it will be jargons.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely very true.
images first, discussion first, and then the core key term.
Yes,
That's how I
very
bridge it.
true.
And then they find it interesting because I've given them a narrative now. Narratives are always interesting.
Yes, narratives are always interesting. And as we near the end of this incredible historian's interview, Divya, there were a few last questions I wanted to ask you. And you actually kind of brought it up, which I think now more than ever when it comes to the field of history, as well as paleontology and archaeology, is historical finds and narratives. Going back to the example that you mentioned before, back in the early 1900s, with that British archaeologist who
Robbers,
uncovered, who uncovered that artifact in India that would have contradicted the science of Europe, proving that India was much older than what it
yes.
was, and framing that historical narrative. I think you may have answered this in your previous interview, but now with the discoveries of the painted caves, what are your thoughts on historical finds being used in narratives that may actually do damage to the history that they are trying to present.
This has always happened, and this has already done the damage. We call it selective history, where we
Mm,
use where we use the same artifacts and give other narrative. And how it's done? Selective history, it's called, because you're using that artifact but not telling the entire story. Or you
mm,
found that artifact, you've documented it, but not bringing it to limelight. It's not important. It's not important. Ignore it. So selective history, it's already done the damage, and India has already suffered a lot of damage from
mm.
using those artifacts, framing false narratives around it. I can give you so many examples. Um, I should. I mean, I'm not sure. Do we have the time to give you one of those examples? I don't want to digress. I don't want to digress. It's regarding one inscription and one mosque. Just I'll just for the sake of explaining this narrative issue. There is one mosque called Lat in Gabriel. You'll have to give me. Please pause. 1 minute. This was Bayana Temple in Rajasthan. Okay, got it. So the story that I'm telling you, by certain artifacts and false narrative, there is this temple slash mosque called Bayana or Usha Devi ka Mandir, Usha Devi ka Masjid, Usha Devi's temple or mosque in Bayana, a small town in Rajasthan, India. Rajasthan is a state in India. So what happened was that there were a group of historians. I don't know if I should name them. I studied from one of them. In fact, a group of historians who very widely said that, see, this this Usha mosque, which is currently presently a temple, was a mosque, and then it was made into a temple, and then again made into a mosque, and then again made into a temple. So don't say that all temples were first raided in India and then mosques were built over them. No, mosques were built first and then temple. This is also the kind of narrative. But the whole story was that an inscription right there in the courtyard of the mosque still stands, saying that it was first a temple broken down by a Muslim governor, and then another a Hindu governor took over, and then they built the
Mhm.
temple. That's how the story goes. But you're using selective history, and that is what colonial people have also always done. For instance, in the Indus Valley, there is a gap of from 1700 BCE, when the civilization ended, to at least 1500 BCE or 1000 BCE, when we have the emergence of the Rig Veda, oldest text in India, being compiled. What happened in those 200 slash 500 years? All sorts of stories. Aryan migration. I mean, Indians could not ever be good. They could not ever stand by themselves. Indians always had to be invaded by foreign peoples. Those kind of narratives are being told, and what artifacts or archaeological evidence they're using after Indus Valley? We don't find any cities being established. We don't find any such kind of planning. We don't find those potsherds. We find very crude pottery. So these are pastoral people these are Aryans who have come from outside. They have conquered Indus. Conquered the Harappans, and the Harappans are now down south because they speak Dravidian languages. All sorts of narratives based on the based on the same archaeological material.
Mm.
So the
You
damage
you
it
just
has
hit
done.
the
It has done the damage. We are facing the repercussions of those damage, and eventually it will clear its name. That is the process. If you frame incorrect narrative around that same archaeological evidence, damage will be done, and it's harsh truth. I mean, we usually talk positive things, but it's harsh truth.
and sometimes history is not meant to be, you know, happy. It's supposed to be very, very harsh, so we can learn from it. We can absolutely learn from it, so that way, and going back to the quote again, you know, justice may be delayed, but it's never denied. In the case
Yes,
for India, you know, these stories, these narratives, it will probably take a long time to fix the damage, but it will be corrected. And before we end this amazing discussion, Divya, there was one last fan question that one of my viewers wanted to ask you. And they wanted to know, well, first and foremost, they actually had a chance to check out your research on your LinkedIn page. So
Mhm.
kudos to that person. But
Thank
they
you.
wanted to know, besides studying and learning and researching and presenting about the Stone Age past of India, what is another era that you would like to explore and research? Possibly another period in India's history that may be overlooked by the general consensus.
I have 2 points here. One, a general area of history which is overlooked by people is epigraphy. It's something also I specialize in, studying ancient scripts, decoding languages, decoding the inscriptions, historical languages, because epigraphy as a source can tell us a lot more, and corroborate the other mainstream sources of history that we have. So
Hmm.
I'd like to look into unread inscriptions, undocumented inscriptions, wherever I find them. So that's one thing. Secondly, there is one area which is not overlooked by general public, by professionals, but um, needs more research. Again, it has been researched upon for the last 100 years, but nobody has been able to do anything about it. It's the Harappan script, what we all call the Indus script. It is undeciphered. Absolutely. So many claims what it could be, what it was. Is it Dravidian language? Is it Sanskrit language? So many debates, but not a single specific answer. We're not even near to deciphering that script. It's like
Oh.
it's not at all. We have the Brahmi script, which is understood to be the oldest deciphered script in India, somewhere around 3,500 years ago. James Prinsep, with the help of Indian pundits, was able to decipher it beyond doubt. And because of James Prinsep's efforts, we have been able to trace a lot of our history. But
Nice.
for Indus script, nothing like this has been done. Scholars are working on it so much. We had this entire conference in India called Gyan Bharatam. This was back in September, and government of India organized it. And all scholars and researchers were invited. I was also there. There was one technical session. 3 days, e- every day, one technical session was allotted to just on the discussion of Indus script. So many people give so many views. This could be pictographic, logographic, nakshatra, astrology, everything, but not a single 100% verified claim. And it has been
Ooh.
100 years. It was discovered in 1800s. Then 1924, John Marshall formally announced it, and today we are talking in 2026. Still nothing on that script.
Oh my
So one
gosh.
of those areas that I'd like to work on is what is this enigma? And I'm saying this because after being trained in the art, in the science, I would say, of paleography, it's an art and also a science, both, of paleography, tracing back ancient scripts, how hand movements worked,
Mhm.
why the pictures changed into letters that we see today. Now, it's paleography which can have an answer to this enigma, I feel. That is why I'd like to research on this area more. So it's not overlooked, but we don't have an answer.
Nice, Divya. Nice. Before we end this amazing discussion, I have actually a surprise question for you, one that I've been
Hmm.
saving for the very end. And I want you to imagine this for a little bit. So let's say you have been invited. Let's say that there is a conference around the world highlighting or picking up some of the best in their field, and you have been invited to attend this
Hmm.
conference. And you, along with many other historians, academics, researchers, are in front of a panel, and your audience, your peers, are fellow students, possibly those who are in their first year of academic of university, and you're answering so many questions. And when it gets to you, what is the one piece of advice that you would like to instill to that next generation of researchers, thinkers, creatives who may be, going back to a previous question, previous topic, maybe having moments of self-doubt in their field?
Okay. Self-doubt in this field is, it currently it feels never ending. You'll always doubt yourself.
Mhm.
We'll question that, is passion so important that we cannot afford to pay our bills? That is how you'll question your I mean, as a researcher, as a, more,
Right.
you want to be a bigger academician in the field of history and archaeology. It's not just India. Now I know it's not just America, not just the UK. You'll always question self-doubt. I have been battling it currently because was involved in a research just the last month, and there is only one mantra that I tell myself to keep going. It's called patience is number one. Have a lot of patience. Please just keep pushing through. Do your research, do presentations, and if there has to be a burnout point that nothing is happening in your career in history and archaeology and you want to stop, then you will know when that burnout is. But don't
Mm.
self-doubt. Burnout is different. You'll absolutely get to know that, okay, I cannot do it anymore. But self-doubt is something which you can overcome. It's not burnout. It's not that you cannot do it. It's just that the system might put you down, or you will feel that I am not studying enough. That is self-doubt. So push through it. And then there is a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which can I read it out? I mean, I know it starts
Oh,
with
yes, absolutely.
it is karmanye vadhika raste ma phaleshu kadachana, which means that you keep doing karma, keep doing your duty, and just push through. That's how I do. Just keep pushing through. Self-doubt will go away. You have to take a pause, take a deep breath, push through. And when that, if you ever, it's either burnout or breakthrough. And you'll get to know when that happens. You need patience and you need to push through.
Beautifully said and well said, Divya. And with that, viewers and listeners, we conclude this amazing late night historians interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to my good friend Divya for coming back on the show
I'm
and
honored.
telling us all about her research. Now, Divya, where can people find you on social media if they want to stay up to date with your latest research and future projects you may have in the coming months?
Well, I'm very, very active on my LinkedIn page. So if any of the viewers are interested in knowing more about my research, please just type my name and you'll find it on LinkedIn. You can also type that keyword epigraphist, you'll find it. And you can also find me on pages of Indian Institute of Heritage. And other than that, it's LinkedIn that I'm very active on. Not I'm very dormant on these other social media platforms like Instagram and WhatsApp. So just ping me on LinkedIn. You can also have my email ID, and that's how we can connect. Otherwise, you always have Gabriel to go to. He can connect you to.
Yes,
Definitely.
absolutely. And if you'd like to see Divya's first appearance on the channel, I will link it up here for you to all check it out. It was a really fun episode, and I urge you all to go and watch it. It is amazing. And I will attach all the same information down below in the description of this video. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for your love and support. A huge thank you to my friend Divya for coming back on the show, and hopefully not the last time. And as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with all new episodes and details coming out later this week and next month. And until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out, wishing you all a wonderful evening wherever you are in the world. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.